I'm gonna try my very best to keep like everything on the screen. All right, I don't have much of a I don't have much of a setup here. So what we're doing is we're gonna be playing in the key of F. But that didn't sound very stanky. That didn't sound very funky. So how do we give it that bluesier tone? All right, I'll show you. There's a series of intervals, right? So you know that's a second because it's a second note in the major scale. This is a third because it's a third note. A fourth, a fifth, sixth, seventh octave, right? You're familiar with all of those terms and so on and so forth. But there's intervals that extend beyond just that one octave. So there's your octave. So this would be the eighth note in the scale. But you can actually go one step more and go to the second again. This is called a ninth. Why? Because it comes after 8. So it's got a little bit of dissonance to it, but it's more pleasing than... And the reason for that is because there's so much space between those two notes. So reasonably, I could play any keys right next to each other. Like, those are only a semitone apart. But if I play them an octave apart, it sounds a little better. And 2 octaves apart, it's hard to even tell that they're half a step in pitch. So what that does is it kind of adds color to your chord without making it sound like garbage, you know? So, once again, in the key of F. This is just an F major triad, which, you know, it's just a root, a third, and a fifth. Alright? And so what we could add to that is the 7th. This is called the major 7th chord. It has a more melancholy, melodramatic feel to it. Almost like a, you know, rainy day. You can almost hear the raindrops like hitting the window pane. Maybe you're drinking some hot coffee. But we're not playing that. We're going to be playing stanky funky stuff. So what do we do to that 7th? It adds some color to the chord, but it's not exactly the kind of tone that we want. So we can flatten it. This is called a dominant 7th. It's where you take the 7th pitch in the scale and flatten it just 1/2 step. That sounds a little bluesier, a little funkier, and you hear that in all kinds of genres of music. You hear that in rock and pop. You hear it in, well, really a little bit of everything. And typically, with that, you have cadences. Now I'm going to be in C, right? That's a C major chord. So I'm going to play a C. And then it typically resolves to the 7th. So that's something we typically hear with that dominant chord. But we're going to stay in F for right now. So, and with funk and jazz and those kinds of things, you typically don't want to resolve those kinds of chords. You just kind of want to move them without getting rid of that tension. There is no... It's always just... You know, it's very, very dissonant. So some other notes you might want to add to that chord, as well as the 3rd, 5th, and dominant 7th, which would be E flat in the key of F. You may want to add a 9th, which would be a G, an octave up. And if you want to get really freaking, you know, weird, you might want to flatten that 9th. Or sharpen it. or do both. So you've got the F triad with a major set with a dominant seventh and a flat ninth and a sharp ninth. That sounds a lot crunchier, and that's kind of more of what you're looking for. You may actually want to take this ninth here, or this flat ninth and sharp ninth, and you may want to move the flat ninth down to an F, and the sharp ninth up to an A, which is a third. So you can go, which gives you a little more movement in your chord. And you can do that on top of this F major triad down here. So you can go. And then you can move within that chord. All I'm doing there is trilling between that A, that G sharp, and that F sharp, and then an E flat, which is the seventh in the F major scale. And that's where you'd resolve to, is that F dominant scale. And you don't want to just bounce back and forth on that chord. I mean, you could, yeah, that would be fine, but typically in music what you have is a chord progression, which is a series of cadences. Cadences are like intervals, but with chords. For example, let's switch to C. I'm not going to do anything crazy here. We're just going to use the white keys, all the natural keys. Here's a C major chord. And then here's a F major chord. Here's a G major chord. C major. So what we're doing is we're using the key of C and then playing chords within the key of C. We're playing a C major chord, or the root. Then we're playing a fourth, which is the 4 chord, because it starts on the 4th of the C major scale. And then we're playing the 5 chord, which is built off of the 5th of the C major scale using the C major key. And then we resolve back to the 1. So you hear that all over pop music. I mean, that's like half of the Beatles songs, you know, that's basically every pop song right now. So you might hear. It's a basic, chord cadence. It's a 1, 4, 5, 1 is what that's called. We're going to be doing that, but we're going to be applying those funky chords. So I'm taking, this is my 1 chord. This is F dominant, so F triad, with a dominant 7th, flat 9, and sharp 9. And I'm going to move to the 4th of that. So the 4th in the F major scale is B flat. And a B flat triad is a B flat, a D, and an F. And the dominant 7th in that would be an A flat. And then the 9th would be a C. What we're actually going to do is we're going to sharpen that C. So it's a C sharp. And we'll play an E flat, which is a flat 3rd on top of that, just to give it some color. And that little thing is just me moving within the scale that I've created here. resolving to that B flat. So I'm playing E flat, E flat, D flat, B flat. And then from there I can move back to F. So that little thing there was basically just moving between the 1 chord and the 4 chord of the F scale. That's all I'm doing, but I'm just adding more notes to that to give it more color, give it more texture, give it a, you know, a sort of vibe to it, you know? That's what separates from an... I mean, they sound different, you know? But I'm basically just doing the same thing that I did in C earlier. So we're going to take that chord progression we made earlier with the F, and then the B flat, which is the 4 chord. And now we're going to add the 5th. So the 5th of F is C. So we're going to use a C major 7 chord. So it's C, the 3rd E, the 5th G, and the dominant 7th, or flat 7th, is B flat. You'll notice that all these chords I'm using use very similar notes. So like the key of F, the only flat in the key of F is B flat, and of course in B flat, you've got a B flat, and in C dominant, you have that B flat as well. So it's like that B flat note is anchoring those 3 chords together. So it has some like... And now we're moving to the 5. And then B flat. And then F. And then you can move back to the C, the 5th, that's the 5, and then the 4, and F. C, that's your 5th, and then your 4th. And I guess that's the basics of funk. That chord progression actually shows up in a Herbie Hancock song called Watermelon Man. And you can listen to that. You can hear how he uses that chord progression in the song and how they build off of that. You can hear, you know, on top of that little chord thing there, on top of that, he's got a bass line, which you can't see on the camera, but, you know. He's doing some kind of bassing within the key of F. But, I mean, that's your basic rhythm, piano, funk, you know. And that's That's all there is to it. And I did that in 15 minutes. Have a good one.